understanding of the GST law, for again some more aspects of those discussion. 1 minute. Not applicable for CA and CS. So when it comes to CS stream of courses, this part C is completely not applicable. Part C is straight away not applicable for CS. For CS, Part A, Part B plus customs discussion. That's all. That will close you. For CMA, Part A, Part B, Part C, all are there applicable. For CA, you have both. The place of supply will not be applicable. Valuation rules will not be applicable. Again, I believe I made a little error here. It is only that topic, valuation rules. Okay. Valuation rules is not applicable. It's not completely not applicable. That is what can be misunderstood. Yes, that sums up our whole discussion. Okay, true. I will not make any further correction. That's all. This is summing up your discussions related. Quickly, we will move forward, make a further discussion as part of customs. What we are going to discuss, and customs is a topic exclusively applicable only for CMA and CS. For CA, customs related topics are not applicable. So, as it is an introductory section, we need to discuss all this, and it is part and parcel of our discussion parameters. So, making a beginning on customs law. So, customs law, is it very tough, sir? See, majority of the inter students of late, with whatever interactions I made, they like only customs law in a very great deal. Because known, sure shot, 15 marks you can get. Known, sir, this only will come. This I have practiced. I know. In this, you ask me question wherever you want. I'll have a complete grip. To that extent, people think, be it CMA, be it CS. So because of that reason, I believe a lot of them have a complete grip on those topics, which makes them little interesting to us. To start with, A as usual, introduction and legal background. Two, customs. Important definitions. C, levy of customs duty. I'm not spending some time because you all can understand. There is an introduction for customs, how it was, how it is earlier now, how it is today at situation. Similarly, there is an introduction required for the purpose of how this law has been evolved over a period of time, and some important definitions we will take it up. What will spend some time on some of those very important definitions of what is goods and what do you mean by import, what do you mean by export, imported goods, exported goods, place of import, customs area, some definitions we have that we would discuss, followed by uh, post that discussions. We will also make our beginning towards levy of customs duty, when customs duty will be levied. Then post levy of customs duty, types of duty under customs, a very important one. Now, there are few different types of duty levied under customs. What are those different types of duty levied under customs? And a complete format for calculation of customs duty. A format for calculation of total customs duty, TCD. Okay. This would be our part one of our discussion. Let me repeat. This would be our part one of discussion under customs law. Then part two of our discussion would be determination of exchange rate, because there is a foreign currency involved in it. Determination of exchange rate, followed by determination of rate of tax, both in case of imported goods or import goods or export goods. A determination of rate of tax. What is the rate of tax applicable? 5, 12, 18, 28. What would be the rate of tax applicable? So that would be decided based on determination of rate of tax in case of imported goods or export goods. Once that discussion is over, a clear discussion on valuation of goods, valuation under customs. No doubt it is applicable on both import goods and export goods. Valuation. Now, this would take us to the complete of the second part of the discussion, the most crucial part. Part one, last two topic, and this part are the core topic. In fact, on the A, B, C, D of part two that we have discussed, solid 8 mark is there. Exam after exam, you have a 8 mark. There are only 2 days I will speak from an exam perspective, day one and day last. In between, don't expect me to be a normal faculty from an exam perspective and all. I am a faculty who will sell concepts. Why conceptual clarity? Post my session, you will have why this, that why will be answered for you to the extent possible. If the why is not being answered by me, then those answers are all still pending at my end itself relating to those topics. In fact, that is the reason why it is not answered to you also. Now, any case, coming back here, the part 3 would discuss about import, export procedure, followed by duty drawback, warehousing of goods, and baggage goods. Miscellaneous provision, some small topics will be there. What is transit, what is transshipment, all that stuff and all. Now, import and export procedure. For import of goods, what is the procedure? Export of goods, what is the procedure? One will be applicable. And again, duty drawback, a specific topic about it. Warehousing of duty drawback is if you're going to export the goods, what benefit you will get after export. A discussion about that is called as duty drawback. How much duty government will give as a drawback to you, give it back to you. That is called as duty drawback. Warehousing of goods, how long you can store the goods in warehouse. If you store the goods in warehouse, are you liable to pay interest or not? A discussion about that. baggage rules. If you go to foreign country and come back to India, either for a work purposes or a pleasure purposes, how much goods you can bring, or in case if you're going to bring more than that, how it has to be treated, how it has to be taxed. A discussion about that would be your baggage rules. So that would be a discussion on those aspects, followed by 1 minute. So that is how your part, what is it? Part A, Part B, and Part C under customs would lead to its conclusion. But I can only say one aspect here. See, these are all broader understanding based discussion. A lot of thought process goes before a topic. We have consciously segregated under customs. This would be your Part A. So, in fact, I would go only in this order. I would not change the order unnecessarily. Okay, I am a person very clear on those aspects. So, coming back here. So, Part B. So, coming back here. Part B discussion will be more on the valuation related matter, valuation of goods, and Part C. Part C will be again more in relation to procedural aspects. Only one word of caution that I want to make here. Leave part 1, part 2, part A, part B. That is not much of my demand now. This whole topic itself is a topic applicable. Customs is a topic, or customs as a law is applicable only to CA and is applicable only to CS and CMA. It is not applicable to CA. Now, in that, this one topic alone, maybe the last topic alone, a basic understanding alone is sufficient for CS. When it comes to CS, if you have a basic understanding, it is sufficient for CS. You don't need to have a very detailed understanding. For example, duty drawback, warehousing, baggage rules, and few miscellaneous provisions all put together is only 4 pages to you, as against 35 pages for CMA. In terms of pages, I just want to highlight. So that sums up our discussion relating to introduction for you for various topics. So I'll come back here. Just give me a minute. So that's the basic discussions that we have to make from the GST perspective. Okay. So what are we going to do now? We will make an introduction to GST. Before that, I'm sharing some files in the chat box. People who are all viewing the whole session from laptop, from desktop, alone would be entitled to download this whiteboard discussion. Okay. So people who are all viewing it from laptop or a desktop. Sir, if you are viewing it from mobile phone, I am sorry, it will not be made available to you, or that facility is not there. So the facility will operate only if it is going to be either a view, either it is going to be on mobile phone. Sorry, I think in pad also it is possible. So just check. Some of you who received or had the opportunity to receive it, if you could able to confirm me through a text message, it would be great. I have shared it. None of you received it. Sai Lokesh said yes, yes, yes. Good, good Sai Lokesh. Shreya Varshini has confirmed. She has received. John has confirmed. Kanchana has confirmed. Ashwini, Bhavani. Prithviraj, clear. What is clear, bro? Good. I have not even. Welcome back. Yes. When it comes to a basic discussion on the term called as GST. This word is very common to all of us. We would have come across, we all know it means goods and services tax. But we all fail to understand certain model in which GST is introduced. Now, prior to implementation of GST, which is very popularly called as pre-GST regime. In a pre-GST regime, there were lot of challenges faced by the businessman, and there were a lot of complexities involved in it. Sir, in what way, sir? If you're going to ask me, prior to implementation of GST, we had a levy called as central excise duty. If you manufacture a goods, you are liable to pay excise duty. If you provide a service, you have to pay service tax. If you sell a goods, you have to pay sales tax, very popularly called, but over a period of time, it is called as VAT, value added tax. If the same sale happens between the state, then you have something called as inter-sales tax, otherwise called as central sales tax, which is CST. So too much of levies. And again, there were problems that whether a particular transaction, is it a goods or is it a service? We had debates, left, right, center debates. Construction, is it a goods or service? Supply of food, is it a goods or service? Information technology software, is a goods or service? So what central government department did? I will levy service tax. What state government department levied? I will levy VAT. Because food is a goods as well as service. Both will levy tax. So somehow there was a need that we need a comprehensive levy. GST is no doubt a comprehensive levy. So what do we mean by comprehensive levy? If you're going to ask me, be it sale, be it service, be it manufacture, be it transfer, everything is liable to GST. Again, be it goods, be it services, liable to GST. It is a single tax payable on a taxable supply. Just one tax payable. It's a simple tax payable. No, sir, there is something CGST, SGST. That and all model, but just note it. On 10,000 rupees, you will pay 18% tax. It was as simple. Earlier working and all was not like that. On 10,000 rupees, you will calculate excise duty plus that value plus excise duty, you will calculate VAT. Value plus excise duty plus VAT, plus you will calculate freight. People will break their head today on the base value. Here take central government portion, here take state government portion. One biggest advantage. Again, it is a single tax on supply of goods and services, at least globally. It is a single tax. But in India, we never opted it as a single tax. We had various taxes, compartmentalization in between GST. In GST, we will have one compartment called as CGST, another compartment called as SGST, another compartment called as UTGST, another compartment called as IGST. We did compartmentalization, but if you look from the globe perspective, throughout the world, GST means GST. One single tax on a supply of goods, supply of services. So no doubt, these are all some of its, attributes of a GST. Coming back here, one big difference is all old tax regimes are under origin-based taxation. All the old tax regimes are under origin-based taxation. What do we mean by origin-based taxation? Origin-based taxation means those state which from where the goods are sold, revenue, tax revenue will go to that state. The state from where goods are sold, to that state tax revenue will go. For example, in case of origin-based taxation, I'll give you an example. Let's take up a situation of value-added tax. Value-added tax, S12 regime, pre-GST regime, it was an origin-based taxation. Mr. R of TN sold goods to Mr. S of AP for rupees 5 lakhs, and VAT payable is, let's say, rupees 60,000. Now, this tax revenue will go to which state? Questions on your screen. Mr. R of TN sold goods to Mr. S of AP for rupees 5 lakhs, and VAT payable is 60,000 rupees. Under those regime, which is origin based taxation. Origin based taxation means where from the sale is made. That is called as origin based taxation. So tax revenue will go to whom? Tamil Nadu government, TN or AP. Just type two words, TN or AP. Tax is going to go for TN. A lot of you sharing, but just Deepa, check your answer. VAT is a origin based taxation. I'll rephrase it in other words. But for GST, rest all are origin based taxation. GST is only a destination based consumption tax. Now, same question I'm asking. Same question. Sir, what do we mean by destination based consumption tax? The tax revenue will go to. The tax revenue will go to Andhra Pradesh. Now, coming back here. Mr. R of TN, this time it is under GST law. Mr. R of TN sold goods to Mr. S of AP for rupees 5 lakhs, and the GST payable is 60,000. Under GST, where the tax revenue will go? It will go to what? Tamil Nadu or Andhra Pradesh? Sumita Jain, check your answer. Sorry, Sumit Jain. Sorry, Sumit Jain, check your answer. Bhavika, check your answer. Janvi, check your answer. Karthik Nadarajan, check your answer. Destination based consumption tax means what is going to be your ultimate destination of goods. That would be to that only the tax revenue will go. Ultimate destination means in that transaction. Don't look for the ultimate. Kavya, check your answer. Origin based taxation means from where the transaction originates, that only the tax revenue will go. Sir, no sir, I'm finding it difficult. If you're finding it difficult, I'll make it simple. Recollect your Vodafone advertisement. Now, Why Vodafone advertisements, sir? Very simple. Wherever you go, our network follows. They will put one pug dog and allow to follow you. Same way, GST is also a destination-based consumption tax. Wherever the goods or services goes, tax revenue will also go there. Tax revenue will not go to the originating state. Tax revenue will go to the consuming state. If you are going to be in Andhra Pradesh and you consume the goods, tax revenue on the consumption of your goods will go to Andhra Pradesh. Understand why Maharashtra said I don't want GST. Understand why Gujarat said they don't want GST. Understand why Tamil Nadu said they don't want GST. Understand why Andhra Pradesh said don't want GST. Because all these states are producer states. They are not a big time consumer states. Kerala said yes, we want GST. Because Kerala is a big time consumer state. Goa said yes, we are changing the law next day. Why? Simple reason is those states are consumer states. The core discussion for us is going to be like this. In case of all those goods or services that destinate to a particular location, tax revenue will also go to that state. Hope all of you are able to understand this model, a very important model. GST is a destination-based consumption tax. And it's not a simple destination-based consumption tax. It is a multi-stage taxation or a multi-point taxation. There are two broad models of taxation in the whole world. There is something called as a single point taxation. There is something called as a multi-point taxation. What do we mean by a single point taxation? Only at one point it will be taxed. It can be the first point of making a goods, providing a service, or it can be a last point of the goods or services. Sir, I'm not able to understand what is single point taxation. A manufacturer of the goods is liable to pay tax. After manufacturer, we have wholesaler, okay, dealer, wholesaler, retailer, and then consumer. Some products, distributor, dealer, wholesaler, retailer. Distributor, dealer, wholesaler, retailer. If you have so many people, none of them will not pay tax. Who will pay tax? Manufacturer alone will pay tax. After that, no tax. That is called a single point taxation. Again, manufacturer will not pay tax. Distributor will not pay tax. Dealer will not pay tax. Wholesaler will not pay tax. Then who will pay tax, sir? Retailer will pay tax. So from manufacturer till retailer, no one will pay tax. Retailer will pay the entire tax. Again, it is a single point taxation. In India, single point taxation for all products will not be successful. Government themselves identified. So what government told is, manufacturer will sell to distributor. Manufacturer will pay tax. Distributor will sell to wholesaler. Distributor will pay tax. Wholesaler will sell to retailer. Wholesaler will pay tax. Retailer will sell to consumer. Retailer will pay tax. Sir, when everybody pay tax on a same transaction, will it not result in cascading effect? In a multi-point taxation, the disadvantage is cascading effect. For 1,000 rupees, when manufacturer sells to distributor, manufacturer paid to government 100 rupees and 1,000 rupees product value. The distributor sells to the dealer for 1,200 rupees. At that time, on 1,200 rupees, he will pay tax 120. But what government told is, we will give you tax credit. Prior to this transaction, if you have paid a tax, you adjust the tax. I have to pay 120, but will I pay 120 to government or adjust the already paid tax 100 and pay only 20 to government? The answer would be, they would pay only rupees 20 to the government. Hope it is clear to you. A dealer who procures for 1,200, he sells to the wholesaler for 1,500. Now, he has to pay 150 rupees tax to government. Will he pay 150 to government? No. Already he has paid 120. He will adjust. He will pay tax only 30. If you carefully note, GST is a multi-point taxation with with a destination based consumption tax, and also gives you tax credit, so that only value addition is taxed. The wholesaler's value addition was 200 rupees. That fellow paid to government 20 rupees. The dealer's value addition is for 300 rupees. So the dealer paid a tax of 30 rupees to government. The idea of the government is multi-point taxation. A self-policing will happen. Sir, what do you mean by self-policing? Wholesaler will say, this retailer only I sold the goods. Manufacturer will say, to this distributor only I sold the goods. Distributor will say, to this dealer only I sold the goods. Dealer will say, to this retailer only I would sell. The wholesaler will say, to this retailer only I sold the goods. Somehow a chain of transaction would be there, so frauds will be less. So GST in India is a multi-stage taxation, and it is a destination based consumption tax which comes with tax credit, so that the disadvantage of a multi-stage taxation is reduced. Hence only value addition is liable to tax. If you could able to agree all my 5-6 points that I have laid down, I think you all understood the whole discussion. With this small practical question, I'll move forward towards the next topic for discussion. R Limited, a manufacturer, has sold the goods to S Limited for rupees 10,000. For rupees 10,000. On which R Limited has paid a GST of rupees 1,000. The total amount paid by S Limited was rupees 11,000. S Limited has sold the goods. S Limited has sold the goods to T Limited for rupees 14,000, on which tax payable is rupees 1,400. How much T Limited has to pay to government? How much T Limited has to pay to government? Let me repeat. R Limited The question is on your screen. I want answers for all of you. Oh, the question is now visible to all of you. In case you're finding it difficult in the chat box to read, that's for your convenience. Yes. R Limited, a manufacturer, has sold its goods to S Limited for rupees 10,000, on which R Limited has paid a GST of 1,000. The total amount paid by S Limited was rupees 11,000. S Limited has sold the goods to T Limited for rupees 14,000, on which taxpayer. I'll add some more fragments to the question. R Limited in TN. S Limited is in AP. And T Limited is in KA. Okay. That would sum up my question for the whole discussion that we have made over. First point for our discussion is how much tax is payable by R Limited. How much tax is payable by R Limited? Okay. The next question. How much tax is payable by S Limited? S Limited has to pay how much tax? Then, instead of alone how much tax is payable, how much tax payable and to which government revenue will go. And to which government how much tax and which government. This is what maximum we can test now at your level. So to start with, R Limited will pay no tax. Huh? Oh, great. Ishwar, kindly check your answer. All of you are giving up with me different answer. Read through the question once again. 1 lakh to AP, how Sumit will come? My question value itself is 10,000. Okay. And I have made a point very clear, tax is 1,000. R Limited will pay how much tax to which government? That's all is going to be my question. Then S Limited will pay how much tax to which government? That's all. If you have answers, good. If you don't have answers, then wait for my answers. That's all. If you get an answer, in my view, you all should get a right answer. That's all I would ask. So quick, yes. R Limited will pay 1,000 and the revenue will go to Andhra Pradesh government. Correct. S Limited will pay 400 and that 400 will go to whom? Here, with certain understanding you are sharing. Now, we will dealing the question. Tax payable will be for R Limited, no doubt, as a lot of you very rightly pointed out, it will be for R Limited, the amount payable will be 1,000 and the tax revenues will go. The tax revenue will go to rupees 1,000 is payable and the tax revenue will go to Andhra Pradesh government because GST is a destination based consumption tax. Similarly, here S Limited is liable to pay a tax of rupees 1,400 as they have already paid rupees 1,000 that will get adjusted. Hence, the net tax payable is 400. This net tax payable will go to which government? T Limited, Karnataka. If you could able to appreciate both the answers, I think that sums up our discussion relating to this topic. Beyond that, nothing we have for discuss or to discuss. So points for a discussion is just you be aware of these provisions. Then through can you move forward? A lot of you got it right. Okay. 400 Kerala. Kerala I don't know. Aisha, how Kerala? If you have doubt, raise your hand. Okay, in the participants box, there is a hand. You can raise your hand. I can unmute you. You are freely allowed to exit whenever you want. I don't know if at least it is in a physical class mode. I would know. When it comes to here, you are free at your end. Okay, whatever you want, you can do. To start with Raj. Yes, you can unmute yourself.
Sir, I don't understand case 2, sir. I mean, case B. How much tax will T Limited pay? How it is 400? Can you please clarify?
They will sell the goods for a value of 14,000, and the tax payable is 1,400. And on this, already they have paid a tax at the time of purchase of goods, which is available as a tax credit, which is 1,000. So you will adjust that and pay only the net to the government. Prithviraj? Prithviraj, understood?
Sir, how did you know that 1000 tax credit is available? I mean, how did you ascertain it? That's my question.
Assume you are procuring the goods, no? You will purchase and only sell, no? Or you will buy raw materials and only sell, no? Process it and sell, no? With air you will make goods, or with raw materials you will make goods? Prithviraj, if you raise a doubt, if I unmute you, and you have to stay unmuted until the whole discussion get closed. If you are going to, it's a general discussion I'm sharing. If you want to raise doubt, raise your hand so that I can unmute you. And if I unmute you, you have to stay unmuted till the end of our discussion. Okay?
Sir,
Because I may be raising a supplementary question. I don't want you to unmute until we close the conversation. Yes, sir.
sir, my doubt is that how did that 1,000 rupees you deducted, sir? I mean, 1,400 I understood.
One minute, sir. You are procuring a goods for 10,000 rupees.
Okay.
You also paid a tax of 1,000 rupees.
Hmm.
Will you have a document for it?
Yes, sir.
Invoice?
Huh.
Subsequently, you sold it for 14,000 rupees, and your tax payable is 1,400. Now, how much you will pay to government? Will you pay 1,400 or 1,400 minus tax credits allowed by the government, and you will arrive the net tax payable? How you will pay?
Yeah, we'll deduct the 1,000 from the payable tax and pay 400.
Verbatim is the model that we have opted here.
Got it.
1,400 is, see, this is a sequence transaction. Manufacturer to distributor, distributor to dealer, so on and so forth. Okay?
All right, sir. Yes, sir.
Huh?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Unmute yourself. Sushmita, I'm unmuting you. Yes. Yes.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Sir, your question had like how much tax is payable by R Limited and S Limited, right?
Right.
So R Limited will pay 1,000 and S Limited will pay 400 to the government.
Net tax. Net tax.
Net tax, yes, sir.
Gross
And
tax is 1,400.
yes, sir, got that, sir. But your question also had how much tax is payable by T Limited.
1 minute. 1 minute. My intention was to test only on 1 month. I will go back to that whiteboard discussion. Maybe I would have made a no. Sorry, it is not R Limited and T Limited. Sorry. It is R Limited and S Limited. Yes. Correct. No. T Limited sale price I have never given. Correct.
Yeah, yes, sir.
My question stop at S Limited. T Limited as of now in the question has purchased the goods.
Okay. That was my doubt, sir. How come we can arrive at how T Limited will pay the tax?
T Limited will sell, no. T Limited will sell to PQRST U Limited.
Yeah, sir, but that was not given, right?
No,
We
we have
cannot
not
arrive.
calculated for T limited. No,
Yeah,
taxpayer.
yeah, yes, sir. But your question specified how much T limited has to pay to government in the second paragraph. That's what I got confused.
Where second paragraph? Yes,
In
Limited
second.
has sold the goods to. See, I think you are able to view the whiteboard screen here.
Yes, sir, yes, sir.
Ah, Yes
After
Limited
which
has sold
tax?
the goods to T Limited
Mm,
for 14,000, on which tax payable is 1,000. How much? Okay, okay. This line is wrong. Okay, okay. I stand corrected. This should not be. The question should be Yes Limited. I'm sorry. Here.
that's okay, sir.
So
Thank you, sir.
I concentrated on this part. Maybe this part is now not relevant. Okay, I'll remove it so that you get a better understanding of it. True.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Because it was a clear copy paste from there. Done, done, done. Yes. Any questions? Done. Okay. Ah. I understand, Srivarshini. Yes, that was a data entry error. Okay. I am not good in typing and all. Some small typing I know, with that I am doing. Okay. Now back to our discussions, mainstream discussion. So come back here. So this is about that specific understanding on the law, where one big advantage that we have is GST is a multi-point or multi-stage taxation. Two, every multi-stage taxation will have a cascading effect as the biggest disadvantage. That cascading effect is overcome by the government by giving you tax credit. Whatever taxes paid on all your expenses, on all your procurements, you are entitled to set off with your output tax payable. It is something, a formula like this: output GST payable minus input GST payable equal to net GST payable. You can keep it over here until we reach a topic called as input tax credit. After that, your understanding will little change. Broader macro concept is this, but in a small way. Because of giving tax credit, what happens as an output, when we think, you are liable to pay taxes only on your value addition. That is what is going to happen. Followed by, just get into the picture throughout the world. GST is not a law. I'm sure a lot of you are aware. It is not only levied, collected in India. Throughout world, more than 160 countries have been opted GST. On that, more than 147 countries effectively operate GST. Initially started with France as the first country to start GST way back in 1940, 48, 49. During those days, they started as GST. Synonymous word for GST is VAT. But in India, VAT means that happens within the state. GST means pan India. But many places, VAT and GST are synonymous words or equivalent words, which is a consumption tax. If you consume any goods or services, GST would be. How GST is introduced throughout the world is full tax credit will be given, less exemptions, and to the extent possible, there is no distinction between goods and services. Unfortunately, India has its own modalities, India has its own structure. Because of that reason, Indian GST is little different from the international model. We segregate between goods and services. Wherever we have conflicts, wherever government felt there would be a conflict, government has stepped in and clarified. This is goods, this is services. When we get into the respective areas, we will discuss. Government has pointed out and said, construction means it is a service. Supply of food means it's a service. Software means this kind of activity is a service. Rest all is a goods. So government steps in and clarify. Again, when it comes to rate also, in India, we opted differently. Throughout the world, if you have been aware of little international GSTs, throughout the world, goods one rate, services one rate. But unfortunately in India, goods 4 rate of tax, services also 4 rate of tax. Understand, India has a variety. various people need to be taken care. So India has a peak rate, a little lower rate. The lower rate is 5% for all the need-based items. It is levied. Peak rate is 28% GST. In between, we have two rates, 12 and 18. Based on the product ability to pay, it will be parked. That's absolutely a decision of government. Nobody have a right to get involved in it. But understand, these are all the differences that we have. One another important difference is, throughout the whole world, every country who implemented GST, except a very few countries, everybody had a single government. What do we mean by single government? You take up Dubai, what the king says, that's the law of land. You take up Korea, what the prime minister says, that is law of land. Unfortunately, here you have chief minister who will have power, and similarly, you will also have prime minister who will have power. Both will operate in their own set of powers. So it's a federal concept. It's a unique federal concept where state is also powerful on certain matters, central is also powerful. So somehow government want to respect that view. Government wants to ensure that the federal setup which has been there need to be protected. So how we have to implement GST means we have references of two countries internationally who implemented GST. One was Canada, another one was Brazil. So the federal setup should also not be disturbed. And similarly, GST should be implemented. So how to bring it? They discovered a model, or I would not say discovered, they borrowed a model called as dual GST. What do we mean by dual GST? There would be two kind of supplies. One would be called as an intra-state supply. Another would be called as an interstate supply. I'm sure now you will get a connect. What is intra, what is inter? Dual GST model. That is going to be the output. So coming back here, getting into the timelines of GST, the history would start somewhere way back in 2006. The then finance minister in his budget speech will come out and say that by 2010, we will implement GST. After that, they have appointed some empowered committee of chief ministers, finance ministers. That empowered committee of finance ministers brought in with some recommendations as part of introduction of GST. They reduced the then central sales tax rate by a little percentage. Then a committee was formed under the leadership of Parthasarathi Shome, who was an advisor to His Majesty UK Queen. And again, he was also the then advisor to the Minister of Finance. Parthasarathi Shome committee has given its 13th Finance Commission report. Various recommendations they have brought in. Meanwhile, they have also discussed, and a final, I would not say final, first discussion paper on GST was released. How in India would implement GST? That itself was by 2009. After that, a constitution amendment bill was placed before the parliament on 2011, and another 2-3 years, the government lost its power. Election came. The erstwhile government, in other words, the UPA government, not the current NDA government, or in other words, if you're not having that much acquaintance with politics, the ex-Congress government who lost its power, and you had the rise of the BJP government stepping in there. So Congress government introduced a constitution bill that was not accepted as usual. The next government came, no, we will set afresh, we will sit, they thought, and they revised the constitution amendment bill, and then they brought in a new amendment bill, which was tabled, which was accepted. The constitution amendment came sometime during 2016, 8th September 2016. The constitution bill got accepted by both Sabha, Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, and President and signed, and you had a law of land coming into place. In nutshell, it's a 10 years journey. A very few people alone can understand this logic. I still remember 2006 are the days in which I was pursuing my articles, and being a first year intern of the firm, and we have been asked to see budgets. We have been asked to see budgets. Prior to that, we never had an opportunity to sit and listen to budget, or we were not aware whether what is somehow some thoughts goes in. Don't ask me, even today I sit and listen to budget, but as how, what is the lawmaker's view, what is his vision, how much he allocates, how he is going to raise his funding, what is going to be the fiscal deficit, what is going to be the revenue deficit, what money goes for what purposes. It's all our inputs. Many people cannot understand, a few of us can understand. So somehow those days we have been watching, somehow an interest came over a period of time, while qualified sometime during 2009. And on that year, when the first GST paper came, we thought, okay, it's good to practice on indirect taxes. On those days, we had only excise, VAT, and service tax. It was already, the Dayan and the profession is already holding upper hand on all this. So we all felt that GST will come, tomorrow is ours, nalai namade. With all that background thinking, dare thinking, from a different stream of profession, stepping into a different stream of profession, things went on well, more smoothly. In any case, that's different. Um, Getting into some of the benefits of GST, no doubt the indirect tax is being simplified. To what extent it is simplified is throughout India, same law. For me, that is the biggest simplification someone can think of. A very, very great simplification. A simplification like this cannot be understood or appreciated at all. A comfortable simplification throughout India, same law. Now, how throughout India it is a seamless market? How? Throughout India, same rate of tax. You deal in mobile phone. In Tamil Nadu, rate of tax is 12%, Andhra Pradesh 12%, Uttar Pradesh 12%, Jammu and Kashmir 12%, any place 12% advantage. It would result in growth in economy. It should naturally result. As of now, I am not commenting on that in a great way. We have to wait and watch, because it will not, growth in the economy will not happen instantly. It happens its own period of time, and certain other factors are relevant. A situation like pandemic, okay, is one of the very challenging parts. But I would often say, I'm not sure if you have been aware of certain historical events, preferably after World War II, the business flourished. Many people would say. After World War II. After World War II, every country flourished like anything. I think this is World War III. The whole country is fighting. They want to get protected. They have closed the borders. They don't want unnecessary access. They don't want unnecessary movement. Within districts, we have restrictions. Within states, wise men are always wise men, you know. I still remember when, I'm sorry, only this region students or this region people alone can understand what I'm trying to share for the next 1 minute or so. We have a nice comedian by name called as Vadivelu, I'm sure. I'm a diehard fan of both these fellows, Vivek and Vadivelu. But again, when it comes to this gentleman, he would tell in a particular comedy, yesterday night we have introduced passport. You have to come with passport only from Madurai to Chennai. See, what a wise thought, thinking, wisdom thought. Today, you see, you can go to Madurai to Chennai or Chennai to Coimbatore, Coimbatore to Chennai. Why that? Between Chennai to Kanchipuram, day in, day out, we will go and come, which is just 30 kilometers. Today, you can go if you have e-pass only. E-pass, e-passport, something. Wise men are wise men. But anyway, what I want to drive home here is, see, though there are so much barriers, economy, yes, we are facing a downtrend in the economy, no doubt about it. But come on, it cannot be go down and down. The ball, the spring is being pressed more, it will get released. When it releases, the economy will go bounce back. Don't be much bothered about it. You and me should not be bothered about much of this economy, because we are all on the lowest part of our curves. Maybe I'm little higher to you. You're all starting. You have not even stepped into your profession. So when you step into your profession only, you will know. Maybe I have just stepped in and a decade is over. For me, I'm just rising in my profession. There is another 20-year curve is before us. God's wish. But point here that I want to drive home is, somebody who speak in his profession, he should be really bothered. Somebody who's just about to start his profession, they are bothered. I'm honestly sharing. Somebody who's a chartered accountant who is qualified now, cost accountant who is qualified over the last attempt, I'm really bothered about them. Because for them, it's a real challenge. For somebody who's pursuing, comfortably pursue, tomorrow is ours. Come on, you have, today the globe is flat and everything is going to be there. Things will be put into track. Don't be much bothered about. We will see a spike in the growth in the economy. You will see a double-digit number growth that happens very soon to this country, in spite of the whole world reporting negative growth. India is a country that reports positive number. There itself, you should draw inspiration. When in case all that is different, you will have a growth in the economy followed by implementing GST. The tax structure, computation, payment of tax, registration, return filing, credit utilization modalities, everything is throughout India same. That's the biggest blessing, biggest advantage of it. So everything would remain same. There are no challenges at all. Returns, procedures, compliance, registration, refund claims, all are same. Goods and services would be competitive. We have to wait and watch. As of now, I don't see any, I don't see any, change in this. There is a distribution or there is a departure in the fiscal powers. Yes, there was a departure. Earlier, if it is a manufacturing activity, central government alone should tax. If it is a sale activity, state government alone should tax was there. Now, after implementing GST, be it a manufacturing activity, be it a service, be it a sale, every transaction happens. If it is an intra-state supply, then central government and state government will collect tax. If it is an interstate supply, central government alone will collect tax. So that is how we have bifurcated the transaction. Throughout India, common exemption. You will not know what important it is. I'm sorry. Because rice, in Andhra Pradesh, it will be exempted. It will be taxable. In Tamil Nadu, it will be exempted. Wheat. In Punjab, it will be taxable. In Tamil Nadu, it will be exempted. Today, rice, throughout India, exempted. Wheat, throughout India, exempted. Milk, throughout India, exempted. Gujarat, milk will be taxable. See, it was in the state government domain. So, state government want to tax what product is growing more there or produced more there. So, from those departures, we are now coming into a common list. You can sit in Tamil Nadu, think about your business in all 12 different states, and you can implement those policy at one stroke. What is applicable in this? Maybe logistics, other aspects you can consider. Prima facie, there would not be much of challenges associated. In India, I think now you will be comfortable on this model. In India, we opt a dual model of GST. What is this dual GST model? There would be an intra-state supply, there would be an interstate supply. If it is an intra-state supply, then central government and state government will have power tax. No, sir, our territory is a union territory, it is Lakshadweep. Then it is central government and UT GST. Union territory GST would be applicable for intra-state supply. It is going to be an interstate supply, then it is going to be liable to IGST. So this is the clear picture. So I'm sure now you will know if a transaction happen between states, if a transaction happen between two union territory, if a transaction happen between state and a union territory, interstate supply. If a transaction happen within the state, then it would be treated as intra-states. Getting into a last part of our discussion for the day, taxes subsumed. Some of the old taxes are subsumed under GST law, which means those laws are all deleted and a fresh law came in. CGST came in by deleting excise duty, service tax, central sales tax, certain surcharges that are all levied majorly. State taxes, such as state used to levy when you sell goods, value-added tax. When goods comes from Pondicherry to Tamil Nadu, or goods comes from Damanandayu to Maharashtra, or goods comes from any other place to Bombay, they used to levy called as entry tax or octroi tax. So those taxes are all subsumed under GST. You no more have octroi, you no more have entry tax, you no more have purchase tax, luxury tax, entertainment tax, betting, gambling, lottery. All these taxes are now subsumed in a single word called as SGST. These taxes are deleted and henceforth you will levy only CGST and SGST. So this is called as tax subsumed. At your leisure, I would recommend you to read through about it because it warrants a small history discussion. So that sums up the discussion relating to introduction to GST. Often people ask us a question, sir, is implementation of GST is an economic decision or it is a business reform or a tax reform? What it is? India was being pressed by the international organizations at least for the last 5 years prior to implementing GST, at least for the last 5 years, that India has to come with the complete Indian, for all of India, entire states of India, one law or one indirect tax law, because income tax is common. But when it comes to indirect tax, we had a piecemeal discussion. Because of this piecemeal discussion, many international players were not interested. Exit of some of the big time MNCs like Nokia and the highest tax levied on Vodafone matters disturbed the World Economic Forum, and World Economic Forum was pressing India. One. The Indian business houses felt they are paying too much of taxes and there is a cascading effect beyond a level they cannot reduce the product. So for those purposes also, they wanted that, yes, there should be an implementation of GST. Economist has told not in 2006, in 1994 itself, they told Pan India, you should come up with a GST. When the service tax was introduced, at that time itself, Raja A. Challaya committee report, one of the renowned economists, Raja A. Challaya, in his committee report, he would say, first recommendation, bring GST in India, unified levy in India. Fourth recommendation was levy service tax in India. The government has accepted the fourth recommendation. The committee report is 1994. From that day, economics was for implementing GST. So business was for GST. World was pushing India for GST. Followed by the third one was economist was for GST. If you want to implement a law like GST and we want to constitutionally want to amend it, remove powers and all, throughout India, you should require one single party under control. 2016 was that year where the current BJP government, or to put it in different way, NDA and NDA allies was controlling majority of the states. Now the situation might be different, but 2016 was the year, if you carefully note. But for 2-3 states, this side Mayawati, Mamta Banerjee, and from here we had Kerala, we had that Communist Party leaders. But for 4-5 states, everything was controlled by the NDA government. So you can also say it's a political decision. To be successful in GST, you required a good information technology background, a super duper network connection, because in GST, everything is system, e-filing, this, that, everything you know, e-registration, e-appeal, e-refund, everything electronic, which means you require a telecom connectivity. October 2016, not even October 2000. Yeah, October 2016, a company by name called as Jio comes out and announces till December 2016, it is free. We will give you free SIM card. And by the time March 2017, that free, some offers were there, and the 4G network, Pan India, was available. And within a span of less than 5.5 months, they reached 1 million subscribers, which took the competitor Airtel to reach that in not less than 10 years' time. What somebody has achieved in 10 years, these people have achieved in less than 6 months. In fact, those counts are all is less than Facebook, everything. Now, I'm not, now the technology is made available. It's a technology revolution, or it is a business revolution, or it is a complete transforming India, is always a question which will be answered over a period of time. So at this juncture, we will do one thing. Keep all your thoughts on. So our discussions will be in this mode. When it comes to the presentation will be shared. It is there for on a small, this presentation is for a small amendment. Few amendments has to be taken care. And once that has been done, it will be shared to you at your end. So thank you all for effective and patient listening. If you have any doubts, yes, I'll be here available for another 1 or 2 minutes. You can unmute yourself at your end and you can raise your question. Thank you all for effective and patient listening. Thank you.